Thank you for checking out my until now weekly Q&A video. This week when the video goes online, I'm on my way on tour. So we're going on a small tour with Træben, so we'll be playing once in Denmark in I think Træben, and then we're also going to be playing twice in Germany, once in Hamburg and once in Lübeck. So if you're in the neighborhood, drop by and say hi. It's always fun to meet the people who are watching the videos, because in general I don't know who's really watching it and I only get a few comments, so I don't really have a picture of the people who are asking comments or who are anyway watching. So please do say hi if you drop by one of the concerts. In this video I'm gonna go over some questions on what kind of guitar you can get for €1,000, different kinds of picking, and why you should focus on some and why not others. I'm going to talk a little bit about finger independence also, and I'm also going to talk about using pentatonics on 2-5-1 progressions and what you should do and what you should watch out with. I have tried many for finger independence and my third and pinky strength. Nothing worked out. Can you help me out, sir? I almost always try to focus on practicing things that are not sort of really just physical exercises, but also something that I can use in music. And I would suggest you do the same, because you might as well want to practice stuff that you can also use when you're soloing. So the most of what you're doing here you should probably be doing on your scales and on arpeggios and stuff like that. So if you want to work on your independence of your fingers, if we take this G major scale, then of course you can just work on that, just playing it slowly, and then see if you can control your fingers. Especially you need to control when you let go of a string, so you need to focus on that when you move away from the string, that your finger doesn't move too much. This is something that I don't really know how well I did it, because it's something I worked on, it's almost 20 years ago, and I remember it was really frustrating to work on. I would say like do it on the scales. You can also do it like with this sort of 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise, and then focus on just and you can also see that when I start speeding up, I lose control a bit and then it goes too fast. So then my fourth finger goes too far away. So when I'm practicing like this, I should actually slow it down and then keep this control. That's sort of the main simple exercises. I'm almost assuming you already work on those. You also just have to be patient with this. This is something that really takes time to develop, because you need to develop a lot of control over these two fingers, which are really connected, and that makes it difficult. So you can of course do that. Don't overdo it, because it's just as important that you just play, really. I think that will help a lot, and it's not like you have to have perfect looking technique and stuff. It's not a must. And I think if you check out people who are playing, you'll see that they don't have that either. So that's for the normal exercises. If you want to look at some more specific exercises, then the ones that I remember doing, and actually I should have those on paper, but I don't have them anymore, are sort of classical exercises, where if we transform them, so this is how I remember them at least, where you lock one finger and then try to play with the rest. So if I do sort of this chromatic or position, 1, 2, 3, 4. I call that a 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise, because it's just one fret, one finger, and it's not really chromatic, so I don't want to call it chromatic. If I want to do that exercise, so I could do that by locking this finger, so I can play. So in this way, I have to keep this finger here and then play it. And I think you'll find that that's really easy with this finger. If you do it with this finger, it's a lot more difficult. And those are sort of exercises where I can't really talk and do this at the same time, where you can work on that and then get a little bit more independence, because you're sort of locking down one finger and you have to move the other ones independently, and that's going to develop that independence. I think it's likely it's not so much about strength, it's probably more about independence. That's at least what I know from students and from myself. You can of course turn these kind of exercises into more musical things by doing the same with a scale. So one way to do that would be to, for example, anchor this finger, and then play a G major scale, since we were in G major before. So you get kind of things you can do, and you can also hopefully put that to some sort of use. You can of course do like if you really want to annoy your right hand, and you can do that with different fingers and try that out, sort of make up your own exercises. Again, don't overdo it, just try it out, and you probably need to be a bit patient with it also, that you just really try to work on it slowly and give it time to develop. Hey Jens, big fan of your videos and your playing. I've got a question. I'm studying with a very prolific guitar player at my college, and while studying we started playing over changes. He has been playing some odd substitutions. For example, a 2-5-1 in C major, I would play A, B flat and B pentatonic. I understand that this is playing off of the upper extensions of the chord tones, but I'm not good at making it melodic, and I'm really not getting good at soloing this way. Any advice on how to make this work in a usable musical way? Well, thank you. I'm glad that you like the lessons, and I'm of course also really flattered that you like my playing. I think that when you're working on this, I take it that your teacher is giving this to you because you already have some understanding of how you can play changes, and you're already working on that, so he wants you to work on other things as well. And the way you want to work on this, well, I take it that your example, if we just go over that example, so we have the 2-5-1, which is like D minor, G7, C major, and then the scales are like A minor pentatonic for the D minor, and then B flat minor pentatonic for the G7 altered, and then for the C major 7, B minor pentatonic. It's a fairly straightforward, a fairly common sort of way to harmonize with pentatonic scales on a 2-5-1. And I think you might want to try and use that we can actually play chords on guitar. So find out what kind of sound this is giving you, and then try and play the chords so that you know what that sounds like, because that's also going to help make it easier for you to hear how it's actually going to sound when you use the scales. And that means that the D chord is probably, I think actually when we have these pentatonic scales, it's a little bit like we're just using this major triad with 2 extra notes. So the D minor, well, you can of course play like a D minor 9 or a D minor, or maybe even a D sus chord, because the scale doesn't actually have a third. And then for the G7, try and play it like a D flat over G. So now we have this. And then for the C chord, of course you can play like this kind of C, D triad over a C, or you can also just play like a C major 7 with a flat 5. So then you get something that might sound like. So you can also hear already that it's sort of some extended sounds, and that's what the lines have to sound like as well, or they will sound like, because they're pretty much the same notes. So that's what you have as a given for how you work on it. Then keep in mind there's a cadence, so it probably wants to move like through the D minor and the G7 to the C, and that means that I think I would suggest you actually work on playing towards probably, so the strong note in this, like I would go for the B, the E and the F sharp on the last chord. That's all target notes that I want to hit, and probably start with the E because you already know how it sounds. It's like just a third of the chord, and that makes it a lot more logical. And it's also, if you can get to that note and just hear, okay, now we're resolving, then you're already quite far. Then you can kind of, then the rest that you're playing is also going to make sense. So I'll start with that, and then it's just coming up with lines, really. And you can do that in a million ways, of course. And then just once you just get used to like playing different lines, so that was a bad resolution, but okay. That's a better one. So now you sort of have something where you can play towards that one. You can of course also just take out each chord and just get used to what it sounds like. So just put this in a looper and then go. And of course the same with this one. And the last one as well. So take them out and just get a little bit used to like how does each chord sound. So you need to split it up in some smaller steps and then try and make lines with it. And yeah, the only thing I would say, which I think is important, is that it's still going to be a cadence, so you probably still want to just resolve at the end, and then you can always add to it. I mean, once you get used to it. And you really need to get used to, if you're not used to using pentatonic scales over other changes, then that is also something that takes a bit of time, because we tend to just sort of hear them in that kind of way, and we can only play those kind of melodies, and that doesn't really work. We need to sort of turn the switch on that in our heads, that we can use this scale for other things as well, and that can take a bit of time as well. So I would say go like that. Check out the chords that fit with the reharmonization, and that will go for any kind of reharmonization. And then just look for where it still relates, so that you can play, if it's a progression like a 2-5-1, play towards the 1, and see if you can make sense of it like that, and then see if you can make some more logical lines. Keep it simple, you know. One of the lines I made was just like running it up in the scale, and then just sort of moving to the next one the closest way and stuff like that. Just keep it really simple. Don't try complicated stuff. And see what you can come up with. I think for this it kind of almost asks you to do these kind of lines, but they tend to not really sound that musical. That can be really hard, and they work well as an effect, but they don't work well if you do it all the time. So you need to sort of find other ways of navigating the changes. And I think like this thing about like doing stuff like this is useful for that. Which is something I talked about a lot in all the arpeggio videos and stuff. So I hope that helps a bit. Otherwise you can of course always ask some more questions. Alternate picking, economy picking, or sweep picking. What should I use? So the thing you need to notice with these three different types of picking is that to have really good economy picking and to have really good sweep picking, you actually need quite good alternate picking. So that already tells you that probably you want to work more on your alternate picking than the rest, just because it's more general. And then, I mean, I think you'll find that when you play, you end up using all techniques. So at least that's what you want to have. You want to have a lot of techniques available, and then you just mix them up to find a solution that sounds the best and that is the most playable. So the combination of those two things. So you want to do stuff that it's easy to play, and so that's why I choose technique. And you also choose technique to get it to sound right. I use sweeping. And I use it mostly for like the sort of cascading kind of things, I guess. So it's like those kind of things where it's like just a bunch of notes, and it's not so important that they're, I mean, they don't have to be sort of in an exact place in the groove. They just have to be a lot of notes, so they're like a cascade. And I don't need to play this like this. Then I would just probably pick it, I think. Because if I want to put them in one place, then that's just an easier technique for me to use. So in that way, I think like sweeping for me is something that I use in certain things, and it works really well for that. And then when I want to have another thing, I'll just go back to the alternate picking, and that goes for. So I'm not sure what the difference is between economy picking and sweep picking really, because the only way I know that economy picking has been described to me is just if you're playing a scale like, then you use like small sweeps, which is something I did practice at some point just to try. I've just try techniques and see how they work and what I can make with them. But what I do find with this is, for me personally, I don't like to have a system for playing a scale. I think the alternate picking is a little bit more general. I'm more free to do whatever I want, and I never play a scale as a scale run. Or never, but I don't do it that often. So having sort of a very strict system for doing so, it's not very useful for me, because I might actually start on an upstroke and stuff, and then the whole system falls apart. And yeah, so that means that I'm not doing that. I think the techniques that I'm using mostly is, so we have like the sweep picking for stuff like this, or if I'm doing stuff like this where it's like 1 downstroke, 2 upstrokes. And if you wanted to play something that's more defined in a groove, so you're playing like this is a different kind of line, and then I'd also pick it, simply because I find that easier to really sort of place it in the groove and give the right note and accent. The thing with awesome picking is that it's fairly easy to play different accents. And what I use the most is probably a combination of awesome picking and legato. So you have different kinds of legato. You have hammer and pull off, and then you also have some slides that you can use. I think those are sort of the main aspects of playing legato. So that's what I'll use, like. So here I'm just pulling off, and the good thing about that is it's giving a certain accent in the line, because this note gets an accent, and the pull off is a little less accented, which works for this line. Again, this is coming out of how the line sounds. You want to choose the technique from how the line sounds and how you can play it. That I already said, and that's the important thing with technique, I think. So that's sort of the things that I'm combining. Like if I play this, and then the question is like, how often do I use legato? You can like tell that I really have to think about what I'm using, because I'm used to just thinking what I want to play and then trying to play it, and then it sort of comes out by itself. Otherwise I have to work on it. And actually I run into a similar problem if I wanted to use like too much legato. Then it's kind of hard to get it really defined, and then you end up in the kind of phrases where you were sort of back in the sort of flurry of notes, not so defined in the rhythm, which has its place too. I do that too, but in general I tend to sort of mix that up. I have a video on mixing up legato and awesome picking, which kind of describes that quite well, and also gives some exercises on like on mixing the two and stuff like that, because I think that's important. I practice that on a daily basis for sure. Great video. I've just passed the exam in Venice Conservatory, and they gave me €1,000 bonus to spend on a guitar. Considering that I'm in love with ES 175s, what would you recommend for that kind of price? Well, congratulations on passing your exam. That's great that they even give you money for a guitar. There's not many conservatories where they do that, I think. So if you want to buy a guitar in that price range, and it has to be an Archtop or like a hollow body guitar, then there are a few things. I think in general, if you want to have a good deal, then probably getting a second-hand instrument is probably going to give you more than buying a new one in general, but you also have to test it. So I would say it depends on partly how much patience you have, because you might have to hunt for one for some time. Like when I bought my the Epiphone that's hanging behind me, my Sheraton, then I think I spent half a year, something along those, like at least 3 or 4 months, to search for one, to find one that I really wanted, and I did try quite a few of them. And in this price range, and that's kind of similar, I think, you have to try a few to just get an idea about if it's an instrument that kind of speaks to you and stuff. That said, when you're in this price range, you can actually get like really well-made arias, or maybe some of the older Epiphones when they were made in Korea, that can be really good instruments. So that can be worthwhile. It's also about trying the instrument out and checking out. It depends on how much time you want to spend on it. Of course, in the same price range, you can get an Epiphone ES 175, and you can also get some of the Eastmans, I think. And of course, you can get Ibanez. And I think if you buy the Epiphones, those I have quite some experience with, because I have the Sheraton, and I also have some students who play Epiphone. You very often find that you have to change the pickups, because the pickups are really not that good. So that means that if you buy an Epiphone, keep in mind that you want to change the pickups. If not right away, then in the future. It doesn't have to be really expensive, but you have to sort of keep it in mind in terms of budget, that that's an extra investment you probably need to make. Another thing you can think about is I think actually because that probably you don't have so much with the Eastmans. Their pickup sounds pretty good if you like Eastman guitars. It's also about finding an instrument that really fits you. So you have to try out a few things. The ES-175, I mean, like, so you can get the Epiphone. There's an Eastman that's very similar to an ES-175 in that price range, and there are also a few Ibanez's that I know of in that price range. One that I tried that I thought was a really good instrument was the cheaper version of the Pentatonic Signature. And an added bonus for that one is if you're playing an ES-175, I find that most people who play those only use the neck pickup and they never use the bridge pickup. And in the Pentatonic one, they took that so seriously that they did not put in a bridge pickup. But that means that they actually took away like some amount of money and they spent that on the rest of the guitar. So that's also why you're maybe getting a little bit more for the money. And if you want to change pickups, you can you only have to change one. So there's something to be said for that. I forget what it's called. It is the Ibanez Pentatonic model, and it's somewhere under €1,000. And the one I tried was a very nice instrument. And of course, yeah. So you can get a nice aria. You can also get some of the 70s or 80s. I think you can at least Ibanez copies of the ES-175. But again, those are older instruments, so you really need to try them and have an idea about how they play and how, because they don't all age well. Like all instruments, if they might not sort of survive getting that old. So that you have to be a little careful. But for those, so the pickups and stuff is usually really good. So you don't have to worry about that, but you do maybe want to check it with the luthier. But you should have like a few different options. So there's an Eastman, a few Eastmans and a few Epiphones, a few different Gibson, no not Gibsons, Ibanez's. So the George Benson Signature is there, and the Pentatonic, and there's some of their Archtop series also has some stuff, and they're all below €1,000. And in the end, it's just what speaks more to you, I guess. So that was a few answers to some of the questions that I got from you guys. Keep the questions coming. This is fun to do for me, at least, just because it's about what you guys really want to have answers to, and it's also, and that in itself is interesting, and it's also just fun to sit down and figure out how to answer these questions and talk a little bit about it, because it's always something that I didn't think of myself or that I cannot fit in a lesson. Or it's stuff like gear, like guitars, and how you have to remember that you sometimes need to change pickups in cheap guitars and stuff like that. Since I've been playing a long time and have a lot of students, I kind of have some experience with that, and maybe I can also see things from a little bit of different angle if you're asking about amps and guitars. So for that reason, those questions are welcome as well. If you want to help me keep making these videos, then please check out my web store, because that helps me get some more time to make these question and answer videos. And you can of course also help me by sharing my other videos on social media, or these videos. And for the rest, keep the questions coming. It's nice to answer the questions, so just give me some questions in the comments, or send me a message on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever. I'm on most of the networks, so I'm fairly easy to reach. New lesson on Thursday. Thank you for watching. See you then.